as a new life force. Prayer, we're going to talk a little bit more about prayer also, outside the context of the Myanmar, but in the general context of what we're learning. And we're going to talk about how prayer is a personal audience with the divine. We're going to have a short story and a couple takeaways. So if that's fine with you all, we can get started with the summary. Leo, if you would like to read this one, you can please do so. Okay, so you may be disconnected. Ovadia, would you like to read this one?
Sure, Rabbi. Thank you. The creative contributions of Hasidut, spiritual awakening. In the era of Baal Shem Tov, the world was in a state of spiritual unconsciousness. Hasidut revived the Jewish spiritual life, awakening hearts and souls to divine awareness. Beyond the letter of the law, Hasidut emphasizes a living lifnim mishurat hadin, beyond what the law requires. A Hasid is someone who seeks to do more out of love and devotion to God. So, a transformation of character. Hasidut teaches not only to refine one's traits, but to transform their very nature. The goal is to turn even our natural faculties into tools of godliness. Accessible godliness. Through clear analogies and relatable language, Hasidut makes deep mystical concepts understandable, even to ordinary people. It enables every Jew to grasp godliness with their intellectual, godly, and even animal soul.
Beautiful, thank you very much. So this is the contribution of Hasidut. So like we explained, Hasidut is a way to teach Torah at the essential level. And because it's so powerful, the teachings are so powerful that they could awaken, the Jewish uh, world. And in those days when the Baal Shem Tov taught it, started teaching it, the Jewish world was in a very state of unconsciousness. And this teaching has the ability to revive the soul and, of course, to be spread in the world and to revive everyone, to bring life to the entire world. And the second thing we said, that it's chassid is somebody that goes beyond the measure of the law. It helps you transform your character, not just refine it, but to generate new habits and the transformation of one's uh, character traits. And it's also accessible to everyone because the way it is taught is so pure and so essential that everyone can indeed relate to it. So this is the contribution of Hasidut, as we explained it at length in the previous session. So you can continue the summary of Vadia on this one.
Yes, Rabbi. Hasidut as the extension of the Ein Sof. Hasidut is not a collection of teachings or practices, but a singular, indivisible essence. Although many qualities of Hasidut have been described, such as a spiritual awakening, refinement of character, and accessibility of divine wisdom, these are only expressions of its deeper core. The essence of Hasidut is a new divine light that emanates from the innermost level of Keter and even higher from Etik, the dimension of Ein Sof, the infinite. This level is called Radla, the unknowable head, the deepest, most concealed divine source. Therefore, all the special features of Hasidut are outgrowths of this one essential point. Hasidut is a revelation from the infinite Ein Sof, and its impact on the intellect, the heart, and the soul is a reflection of that origin.
Beautiful. So all these features, these special contribution that the Hasidut brings, is because Hasidut comes from a very, very deep, high level, which is what we call the Pnimiut Keter. So it's the inner part of God's will, and it's really what's beyond anything. And you can call it the Ein Sof, this infinite light, that comes from God Himself, and that is invested in His creation to bring life to it. So the teachings are so powerful. That's why they have all these attributes of transformation, of elevation, and impact on one's soul in both intellect and emotionally, because of the depth of this information. In general, Torah, as you know, is what we call the Chochmah, the supernal wisdom of God. But here we'll go very deep into that wisdom. We go at the origin of the original thoughts of Hashem. So what's contained in the teachings of Chassidut is something very essential and at the innermost part of God's Keter, God Hashem's crown. So we can continue the summary here. Ovadia, you can read this next one also.
Yeah. Torah, the epitome of perfection. The greatness of Torah HaChassidut applies to all parts of the Torah, which contains every kind of perfection found in the world, both intellectual and moral. Torah's ethical teachings, such as those in Pirkei Avot, are the ultimate expression of goodness and truth. In contrast, moral systems created by humans mix truth with falsehood, and even the good they contain originates from Torah. As the Rebbe Rayatz once remarked when asked which political system Torah supports, he explained that since Torah is the embodiment of perfect truth and goodness, it contains the best of all ideologies. Torah is also the highest form of wisdom, as stated in Deuteronomy 4:6. For it is your wisdom and understanding in the eyes of the nations. Moreover, the entire life force of the world, including the spiritual realms, depends on even the smallest detail of Torah. Yet, Torah's true essence is not its wisdom, ethics, or spiritual influence. Its essence is that it is completely united with the infinite light of Ein Sof, transcending all creation. Because of this, even describing Torah as the source of life for all worlds does not do justice to its essence, for the worlds are as nothing compared to the Ein Sof. While all parts of Torah reflect this essence, it is most fully revealed in Chassidut because the Torah areas of Torah, because the other areas of Torah are clothed in forms. Example, Pshat, Remes, Drush, Sod, which can conceal the pure Ein Sof. Chassidut, by contrast, is not bound to any one form and can express the Ein Sof in any garment, thus fully revealing the abstract divine light within it.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. So in general, Torah is the source of all goodness, and truth. And that's why anything good, any good ideology in this world is really sourced in Torah. You can find a trace of it. Any, for example, political, ways of running a system is sourced in the Torah. The problem is that in this world, when the man comes up with things, there's usually a mixture of good and bad. And the Torah does the sifting between the good and bad, and it tells you how to do only good. Yet the true essence of the Torah is not its wisdom, ethics, or spiritual influence, because the essence of Torah is the essence of Hashem. And it's way beyond any worldly expression of it and even the creation of the world. It's the source of all creation. So the creation is totally nothing compared to this essence. And now in Torah, there's different ways to teach Torah, because Torah is the godly wisdom that is being dressed into this physical world, made accessible to our mind and applications. And this is why the Torah is going to be dressed in what we call the Pshat, which is the simple meaning of the story. Then the Remez, we have the In, the Drush, the expansion of it. And then we have the Sod, which is the secret. So, but all these different levels of Torah are Torah with a certain garment, the garment of Pshat, the garment of Remez, which are different ways for us to tap into something greater. But the way the Chassidut teaches is without that garment. It's pure essence. And that's why when you listen to teachings of Chassidut, you feel the essence. The essence relates to the essence. You can say, okay, when I give you a story, for example, of the Torah, I told you the story of Abraham. Okay, you hear a nice story, but you see the pshat, you see the simple meaning of how it happens. But when I tell you the essence of the story, suddenly you appreciate the story on a different level totally. And this is the way Chassidut is removing that garment, so to say, and tapping into the essence of it. What's behind, the pshat, the remesh, the drush, the sod. And so it's the quintessential level, the quintessential school of thought, of teaching, which is teaching the essence itself. So thank you very much for that great summary of these three first chapters of this great mamar that was said on the 19th of Kislev, which is a very special day, the day that we celebrate the birth of Chassidut. And the Rebbe said this mamar to explain us what is Chassidut all about. And now we're going to continue with the next parts of the mamar, Bezrat Hashem, and we're going to do a summary each time like this just to have everything flow and to know where we start and how we continue, because it can get a little bit deep. Mama is a very powerful source of understanding. We know that the Rebbe would teach, two types of teachings generally. One was what we call a sicha, it's like a talk, and the Rebbe would ask a question, an answer, and usually an insight and a lesson for us to learn on our day-to-day life. That was more of a casual teaching. And then at certain times during the Farbringen, when the Hasidim would gather, there was a certain time during that event where they would start a song and to introduce the Ma'amar, and they would sing the Nigun. And then the Rebbe would start, the room would be totally silent. And there was a flow of divine, teachings that would come from above. That's what a Ma'amar. It's a statement that comes from above, so it's a lot deeper than just a talk of insight, but it's spreading words that are coming from above. Just like Moshe, it says that the Shekhinah would express itself through his throat, he would express godliness, that flow that was coming from above. So to the Rebbe, when he would say a mama, his voice would change. There was a new energy in the room, and there was a flow that would come from above. You can see it in the video. It's very, very unique. And so this is what we're learning. So it's good to have a summary so we can keep track, as it can get a little bit deep. And today we're going deeper with the ramification of the concept of Mashiach.
Rabbi,
So, yeah.
the four levels of Torah, Pshat, Remez, Drosh, and Sod,
Yeah.
all these four levels are revealed completely, or
So the Sod, for example, the fourth level, is the secret. So it's not so revealed. But the point that makes it a different is that Chassidut is without a garment of expression, because the Sod is only going to teach you things in the way of the secret. So it's going to be very codified. You have to learn about God's name, how God creates the world, the different permutations of letters that are creating the code of creation. Right? But this is not accessible to everyone. It's accessible to people that are able to understand the garment of the Sod, of the secret. Chassidut is an essence, and the essence touch into the essence. So you remove that garment that complex garment of Sod, and you extract the essence of the teaching. So it's a very different way of. So it's not about being secret or not. It's about the garment, the way the teaching is taught. And there's a way that's called the pshat, and this is what Rashi does. Rashi says, "I came only to teach you the pshat," and he's going to explain you the Torah in its simple sense, so that even a child could understand it on a simple meaning. But he's not teaching you the secret behind it, right? So you only have one aspect, one garment, but which is very important, because before you can go deeper, you need to know the simple meaning. What Chassidus does is that it's teaching you the essence, the Primiut HaKeter. And we're going to explain a little bit more what that means in today's session. So, Gilbert, would you like to read this one?
Yes, Rab. From the reward of a commandment, we will know its essential nature. We can further clarify the definition of the essential nature of Chassidut through explaining the inner meaning of the idea of Mashiach. For from the reward of commandment, we will know its essential nature, and since it is through the dissemination of the fountains of Chassidut that the Master comes, referring to King Mashiach, thus from the concept of Mashiach, the reward will know what is the essential nature of Chassidut. With the coming of Mashiach, many sublime events will be introduced. For example, Israel and the Shekinah, the divine presence, the immanent category of the divine influence, brought down to earth by the study of Torah and the practice of mitzvot. Shekinah is identified with Malchut and the source of the souls, and also corresponds to the second letter He of the Tetragrammaton, the Yud and the He and the Vav and the He. One whose sins, on the other hand, breaks up the unity of the divine name, dragging down the Shekinah into exile, will be redeemed from exile. Even greater, all Israel will be great sages and will know the things that are now concealed and will attain an understanding of their Creator. For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of Hashem. Rambam Helkot Melachim. And even when the Beit Hamikdash stood, the entire world was not full of knowledge of Hashem. For that is said to take place only when Moshiach will come. Even greater yet, there will be a change and great innovation in the works of creation.
Okay, beautiful. So in order to understand what Chassidut is all about, one of the ways to do that is to understand its reward. And what is the reward of Chassidut? When the Baal Shem Tov asked Mashiach, when will the Master come? Mashiach says, when your wellsprings will spread out into the world, when your teachings are going to be accessible to everyone, this is a right vessel. The world is in the right vessel to receive the presence of Mashiach. So we see that Chassidut is directly connected to Mashiach because it's kind of the reward of teaching the essence of Hashem's wisdom is preparing the world for Mashiach. So by understanding what Mashiach is, we could understand what Chassidut is also, because Mashiach is an outcome of the teachings of Chassidut. So what does it say about Mashiach? There's a lot of different things that are going to happen, sublime events. And one of them is, for example, that Israel and the Shekhinah will be redeemed from exile. Okay, because the exile of the Shekhinah came about through the exile of the Jews. And it also says in the Rambam, when he talks about the laws of Mashiach, that all Israel will be great sages, and they're going to attain a very high understanding of the Creator. And through them, the world will be full of knowledge of Hashem, through the teachings that are going to spread out. And everybody's going to be able to recognize every single human being. The Bayom Hahu Hashem Echad Ushmo Echad, on that day, Hashem will be one and His name will be one. And another thing that's going to happen when Mashiach comes, even greater yet, is that there's going to be a change and an innovation in the work of creations. So we see all these things that are connected to the revealing of Mashiach. We need to see how it's connected to Chassidut. So Kimchi, you can continue on this next one.
Sure, Rabbi, thank you. Mashiach will transform the condition of this world. Continuing to detail the innovations continuing into details, the innovations to accompany the coming of Mashiach, the aspect of divinity which transcends nature will then be revealed. Therefore, the name of Hashem will be pronounced as it is written. For throughout the entire world, there will be a liberation of the name of Havaya. He was, he is, he will be, simultaneously. The name that is beyond time and space. And this revelation will be similar to that which was manifest in the times of the Beit HaMikdash. These events, furthermore, will be innovations not only in this world, but their spiritual corollaries will also be introduced into all the worlds. For the behavior of the supernal worlds proceeds according to the order of behavior of this world. Rosh Chodesh and the festivals, for example, into which diffused an additional measure of light are established above in accordance with the establishment below. And because the coming of Mashiach will completely transform the general condition of this world and all its particular aspects, there will be likewise a corresponding change in the supernal worlds. Yet, in spite of all that has been explained above, and the great magnitude, sublimity, and wondrousness of all these matters, in truth, they are still only the ramifications of the essential point of Mashiach. Thank you.
Beautiful. So here we add a couple things to that list by saying that, there's going to be a great revelation of the name of Havaye, which is the name that is beyond nature. Right now, what we see in the world is more the expression of the Shem Elohim. But here we're going to reveal the Havaye within the creation, which is the name that is beyond, it's past, present, and future at the same time. And this was a revelation that was present in the Beit HaMikdash, especially on the day of Yom Kippur, where the Kohen Gadol would go inside the Holy of Holies, which was a space that was beyond time and space, as we know from the Aaron, that didn't take space in the room, and everything else, all the miracles. So we see a great revelation of Havaye, and it's also going to be there when Mashiach comes. Also, there's going to be innovation not only in this world, but also in correspondence with the world above. And when we establish something below, it also has an impact above. So we see this transformation happening, the world being totally refined with the coming of Mashiach. So all these things are, like we said, wondrous manners, but they're just an expression of the coming of Mashiach, not its essential point. So what's the essence? All these things derive from the essence. But what really is the changing? What is really the contribution of Mashiach? Not just its outcomes, And for that, we're going to have to go a little bit deeper into the essence, of the concept of Mashiach. So we're going to ask Leo if you can continue reading on this one.
Okay, Rabbi. Mashiach possesses the level of Yehidah. The essential level of Mashiach is the Yehidah. As it is known, David possessed the level of Nefesh, Eliyahu of Ruach, Moshe of Neshamah, Adam Chaya, and Mashiach possessed the level of Yehidah. These 5 names are the 5 levels of the soul in rough translation. Nefesh, or vitality, is the lowest grade and life force of the body, the natural soul and simple life of man. Ruach, spirit, the next grade, is the spiritual faculty reviving man's emotional attributes. Neshamah, or soul, is the divine force vivifying the intellect. Chaya, living, is an even more refined godly level. Yehidah is the divine spark itself and clothed in the most refined spark of the soul. Yehidah is the innermost point of the soul, unified and one with God. It represents total bitul, self-nullification, nothingness, since every one of Israel possesses each of the 5, 4 obscure and 1 predominant. Yehidah in this sense is expressed in Mesirat Nefesh, literally self-sacrifice, martyrdom if needed be. David, Eliyahu, Moshe, Adam, and Mashiach each possess the general level of one of these 5 categories. Mashiach possesses the general Yehidah of all souls.
Beautiful. So in order to explain, Mashiach, and what Mashiach is all about, and the essence, we need to talk about the soul of Mashiach. And Mashiach possesses the general Yehidah of all creation. We know that certain people, for example, Adam, Arishon, he has what we call a general soul. And what's a general soul? It's a soul that includes all the other souls. So there was these 5 sages mentioned here, each were holding the general part of soul of humanity. So for example, David possessed the general nefesh, Eliyahu was the ruach, Moshe the neshama, Adam the chaya, and Mashiach is going to contain the general yechida, which includes all the other yechida, that part of that essential part of the soul of the entire creation of all humanity. Now, each of these part of the soul come to expression in different ways. So, for example, the nefesh is the vitality, and it's the lowest part of the soul, but it's also the part that is invested in the body and that is making it move. So the nefesh is usually, in the blood, and it's connected to the action, of a person. And the good deeds that we need to do in this world are done through our nefesh. The ruach, which is a little bit higher, and it's the part that Eliyahu had the general ruach, and it's connected to the emotional attributes. Ruach means spirit or even wind, and it's lodged in the heart because it generates the emotion. So Eliyahu was holding the general emotions, that part of the soul of the entire creation. And the neshama, which is connected to the intellect, it was held by Moshe, and we know that he taught the Torah. The chaya, which is more connected to the level above the intellect, and it's connected to the will, the willpower usually, and that was held by Adam. And the yechida, which means being united with Hashem, yechida means to be one, to become one, is connected to Mashiach. Now, what's yechida? Well, how does that express itself inside of us? So the intellect we could understand, the will we could understand, the emotion, the action. But what is the yechida? Yechida is when we rise above our own self. That's why it's above our own willpower. It's about being in a state of bitul, self-nullification, and nothingness in front of the Creator. This is how we become one. Because if we don't have that bitul, then we have our entity, and then there's a God's entity. So the nature of that part of the soul is the ability to be in a state of selflessness. And that's why it generally expresses itself with this ability to even do mesirut nefesh. Mesirut nefesh means to self-sacrifice. And for that, you have to be able to go beyond yourself, and express that expression. So it's not just a physical self-sacrifice, but it's every mesirut nefesh we do on our day-to-day basis. Putting, for example, time like you did today to come and study Torah when you could have been doing something else. So you were moser your nefesh. You kind of put your own desires on the side in order to connect and to study Torah. So this power is linked to the yechida of the soul, and this is what Mashiach is all about. He's connected to that highest level and most refined part of the soul. So Yeshurun, if you could continue on this one.
Rabbi, can I ask one question here?
Sure.
King David was on the, you said that King David possessed the level of nefesh.
Yes.
What exactly is that when you say King David possessed that level of nefesh? Because we see that he brought so many prophetical verses in Psalms, so that is related to something higher than nefesh. So could you please explain what exactly he possessed that level of nefesh? If so,
So
and where do we stand? Where do we stand? Nefesh is the lowest level.
okay, so we talk about the general soul. So that King David had the general nefesh of the entire humanity, so to say. But what's nefesh? Nefesh is a very important part of the soul. It may be the lowest, but it's the one that is connected to this physical world the most. because it has a direct implication on the body. And we know that King David was the king, the Malchut. And the Malchut is also the lowest attribute of all the Sefirot. But it's the one that is doing the bridge between the spiritual and the physical. You know, you could have all these emotions, this intellect, even a willpower, and even a desire to self-sacrifice. But you have to apply it with your nefesh, you know, into action. And we know that King David, we see that in his life, that he was able to connect both worlds. He was a king, so he was very involved in the physical world. And during the day, he would fight the wars and take care of the country. But at night, he was singing psalms and being very spiritual. And we hold our prayers, you know, to King David. So he had this ability to connect, you know, these two opposites into one and apply it, you know, in action. So this is what King David, and with that we can understand why he's holding the, you know, the nefesh of the world.
Rabbi,
So now, just the
sorry.
second part of what you said, where are we holding? We all have the different parts of souls, you know, within ourselves. This is what we mean that they are the general one. We all have a part of the nefesh, the ruach, the neshama, etc., within our being.
So
Okay.
do we shift from nefesh to ruach to neshama like that as we grow? You mean that?
That means you have a nefesh within you, you have a ruach within you, you have a neshama within you. Okay, so the nefesh is vested in your, you know, in your physical being, in your blood. The ruach is vested in your heart, the neshama. So you have one soul which is comprised of different parts. Okay, these are parts of the soul, by the way. Maybe I didn't explain it, but these 5 levels are the 5 parts of the soul. And there's an essence, there's the essence of the soul, but there's also the nefesh of the soul. And we all have these different levels. And we're going to explain a little bit more. Okay,
Thank you, Rabbi.
no problem.
Okay, I will read now. Yechida is the quintessence of the soul. The superior quality of Yechida in relation to the other 4 levels of Naranach, the acronym for Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chaya, within the context of these 5 levels which every individual soul possesses, is that the 4 categories of Naranach are each particular individual levels, while the category of Yechida is the essence of the soul which transcends particulars, as indicated by its name, soul, or only one. It's important to clarify that although it is from the category of Yechida, the essence of the soul, that the 4 levels of Naranach are drawn, this does not mean that the state of Yechida may be classed as a source and generalization of these particular levels. For every term Yechida indicates that it is a simple, non-composite oneness which excludes any relation whatsoever to details. Even the relation of being their source, as is known from the difference between Yechid, which means soul or only, and Echad, one. The Hida rather is the quintessence of the soul, and from it also issue the 4 categories of Naranach.
Beautiful. And here we explain the difference between the level of the Yechida and the other levels of the soul. Is that the other part of the souls are particular individual levels with different ways of expression. But the essence is the essence. And in fact, the essence is not in a particular level, it's everywhere, because it's the essence of every level. It's what gives life, you know, it's the quintessential level that is behind anything. So it's something that is more general than those particular, you know, specific, you know, types of level, and it brings life to each and every one of it. So this is what the Yechida is about. Now we understand what the Yechida, and we know that Mashiach is connected to the Yechida. So let's continue on this next one.
Rabbi,
Nelson,
Rabbi, I have this question. I've
yeah.
been searching the term Yekida in Tehillim as what King David refers to the soul. Can you find the specific verse of that?
I'll have to look into it, but we
Okay,
can.
okay.
No problem.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
So Nelson, would you like to continue this one?
Yes, Rabbi.
Thank you.
The Yekida will be manifest in the world. Now, in the same way that the Yekida of every individual soul is that soul's quintessential point, so also is the level of Yekida, the quintessence